Greetings, everyone. This is Two-Way Tonight. I'm Mark Halperin. Thank you for being here, part of our return week back on after a holiday break. Grateful to you all for being part of the Two-Way community. We'll play by the standard rules here today. If you're here on the platform, want to get in on the conversation, please raise your hand. Watching on X or YouTube, no smack in the chat. And we welcome all voices here. A big part of Two-Way is all voices under one roof when we're talking politics or government or anything having to do with what you normally see in American media, red-blue divide. We're for all voices. It does not mean we're for just centrists, moderates, and independents here, although we welcome them. We're for everybody. We will give everybody a chance to speak, and we welcome a different perspective. So if you hear somebody say something you don't agree with, just use it as an opportunity to learn rather than send me a nasty email saying you'll never watch again. Thank you for your attention to that matter. We're talking about 4.5 things today. Assuming no news breaks while we're in the process of meeting. Number one, more on Venezuela. A lot of developments today, including some more words from both the president and the vice president, and some reporting about both Cuba and Greenland that will be interesting for us to kick around. January 6th anniversary. Democrats made a big deal of it. The White House put some stuff on the website, which they're now saying was a master troll. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Governor Walz, after yesterday making a statement about his decision not to seek re-election, did hold a press conference today, answered a lot of questions, and amongst other things, defiantly said he would not resign. We'll talk about that. Then the president spoke to House Republicans at the Trump Kennedy Center today, and he said some weird stuff and some interesting stuff. So we'll play some of that for you. I'm surprised after the whole brouhaha over calling it the Gulf of Mexico versus Gulf of America, that the White House hasn't started to kick people out of the pool who don't call it the Trump Kennedy Center. I call it the Trump Kennedy Center, but because I'm an experienced broadcaster, you can tell from my voice that I'm mocking it a little bit when I say it. So it cuts both ways. Stephen Miller can enjoy my saying, Rick Grinnell can enjoy my saying Trump Kennedy Center, but those of you who think it's ridiculous can hear in my voice a very sophisticated mocking. Almost like a 6-7 type thing. So we'll talk about the president's speech at the Kennedy Center. And then the House majority is in danger. There's 4 special elections pending. 3 of the 4 will almost certainly go along historic red-blue divide. But it is not impossible that Republicans will face a crisis regarding the speakership. At a minimum, the margin of error now on tough votes is as thin as my neighborhood butcher slices my pepperoni when I ask him to cut it extra thin. Horrible metaphor, but you get the point. So we're going to talk about all those things. Again, we'll love to take your questions if you're here on the platform and want to be part of the conversation. And we will do it with 2 spectacular guests. And when I say spectacular, I might be overstating it a bit, but you'll decide for yourselves. Ladies and gentlemen, here's Tim Chapman. Tim, welcome in. Glad to have you back on the program. Tim, as you know, is the president of Advancing American Freedom. And he used to work at a little place that's not getting much media coverage lately, the Heritage Foundation. But we're forward looking here. We're just talking about Advancing American Freedom, which is an organization which, Tim, how many people have you guys hired in the last month?
Yeah, we brought on about 15 in the last couple of weeks, so and more to come. So we're growing rapidly.
More to come, and just by sheer coincidence, many of them are trooping over from the Heritage Foundation.
Indeed.
I don't know why that is, but the organization is young. You guys are like 4 years old.
That's correct. Yeah,
4 years old,
Yep.
And your patron saint, former Vice President Pence. But it's a fascinating case study of how conservatives are looking to navigate in the Trump and then looking towards the post-Trump era when President Trump has many policy positions which are not traditionally conservative. And some Washington organizations have taken as their North Star Mar-a-Lago. Wherever Mar-a-Lago is, that's their North Star. Tim and his colleagues believe the North Star should be traditional conservative principles, updated and modernized for the current moment, but not kowtowing to one particular person's point of view. And how's that? How am I doing on that, Tim?
That's great, Mark. I couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you.
All right. My pleasure. And we love having you here. And we look forward to having all 15 of your new colleagues on. It'll take us probably till March to get that done.
That'd be great.
We want everybody on. And then shocking me because I don't know where the hell he is. Michael LaRosa, regular guest here, but Michael, all of a sudden, is that your background, dude? What is that?
You can't see me?
No, I can see you. I'm saying, what do you, I've never seen that thing behind you. What does that say? 13th Park?
Is the very sophisticated Ballard studio, and 13th and Park is our flagship YouTube show.
Who are the hosts of 13th and Park, and why haven't I been booked on as a guest yet?
13th and Park has just hit 3 million subscribers on YouTube, and some very, VIP level guests who've rolled into.
Who hosts 13th and Park?
A former second generation ad maker, a Republican ad maker who you might know, named Adam Goodman.
Sure, I do know Adam Goodman. Is he a member of your firm?
He is. He's a partner of my firm.
I did not know that.
I know he's the host of
and they have 3 million followers on YouTube.
I think we're over 3 million, but yeah, over 3 million followers. It's pretty impressive, right?
How often is the show out?
I want to say they put it out maybe two out a week. I think they were doing one a week, putting one out a week.
I'm thinking some Middle Eastern kingdom paid for the traffic.
No.
I don't understand. Anyway, Ballard Partners, very successful, bipartisan DC. Michael would say if he met someone on an airplane and said, "What do you do?" Lobbying firm or public affairs firm. I'd call them influence peddlers, but not in a pejorative way. Anyway, these are two organizations, both Tim's group and Michael's group, thriving in the age of Trump 2.0. So congratulations to you both. Happy New Year to you both. Thank you both for being here. Let's start with Venezuela. And I'll play some sound from the president and the vice president in a moment, but let's just start. Tim, how are you feeling as an American, not in a partisan way, but as an American about how your government is approaching not just the taking of Maduro, but the whole thing, the threats to other countries, the Navy, spending my tax money on running Navy ships off the coast, the embargo, gunboat diplomacy, the oil. How are you feeling about the whole thing as an American? Is this making you excited and happy or nervous? How are you feeling about the whole thing?
I'd say cautiously optimistic. I mean, I think it was pretty clear that Maduro was a bad actor. That Maduro was a dictator who was oppressing his own people. That Maduro was somebody who was causing a lot of problems for us in the region. And it became untenable to have him continue in that position. And so I'm cautiously optimistic that removing him creates an opening for our priorities in the region, and also potentially creates an opening for the citizens of his country to actually get a better government. So that would be a great thing. All of it would be good. I'm very happy that it was executed in such a precise and swift manner that we did not lose any service members in the execution of the move. But there's a lot of work to be done, Mark. And I just think, the right position is to be hopeful. But it all depends on what the regime that's left in place does. And it all depends on how it kind of ripples out into other theaters across the world. So right now, cautiously optimistic. A good thing was done, but there's a lot of work that remains to be seen.
All right, Mike, I'm going to want you to answer the same question, but Tim, let me ask you my favorite, a hypothetical follow-up. Let's say the president strikes a deal with American energy companies. It says, you guys go in and invest in the infrastructure needed to start taking out Venezuelan oil, and I want 25% for the taxpayers of everything you sell on the open market. Would that be something you'd be enthused about?
Look, I'm not a big state capital guy.
Yeah.
I'm not at all comfortable right now with what the president's doing in terms of trying to take ownership of various private companies.
Yeah.
I like that he's clearing the way. I like that he's clearing the way for the potential for American companies to go in there. But I don't like it when the president kind of leans on American companies for a quid pro quo. I think that ends up gumming up the system. If American companies go there and invest in Venezuela, that will redound to the American people's benefit. There's no doubt about it. The price of oil will go lower. People will have more affordable energy. There will be more options for Americans. But I don't want the president cutting these kinds of deals. And I think it just sets bad precedent. We've already done too much of that from my perspective.
All right. Michael, you've been awesome on Twitter, as always, holding particularly the Obama people accountable for their positions. And we don't need to go into the whole thing, but I just so respect not just the passion and cleverness that you bring to it, but the level of principle, because we need more of that in our society, in both sides, people calling out things that are just ridiculous. So how are you feeling overall, not just about seizing of Maduro? Tim cleverly took the low-hanging fruit and said, yeah, I'm glad we took a dictator. How are you feeling about threats to Greenland, threats to Cuba, threats to Colombia, and the explicit declaration by the president to Joe Scarborough, we're going to take the oil.
A little anxious, just because the goals, the sort of policy goals, really aren't clear. It seems, look, I'm all for a strong executive and the executive acting unilaterally in this kind of space, in the foreign affairs space. I'm totally fine with that. I don't understand the goal with like Grenada. Well, even with Venezuela, I think that there's just so much that we don't know. And in terms of the why, Greenland and Cuba or Colombia, what is this hemispheric obsession that they seem to have, which is fine. I'm all about protecting our own hemisphere too. But I would have hoped that some of the global consequences of what we did may have been worked out ahead of time. What does this say to the Chinese about whether they want to react? I mean, they pay for Venezuelans' military. So, I mean, they're going to react at some point. I hope that we're prepared for some of that. Are we prepared for Putin to go in and kidnap Zelensky? Because we've kind of now given him impetus to do that, and at least the rationale. So I would love a little bit more strategic clarity from the White House. Legally, I don't care. I'm fine that they took him out.
Yeah. You raised a ton of issues. I just want to ask you guys about one, with respectfully. This issue of, well, this gives Putin a green light to take Zelensky, or gives the Chinese a green light to go to Taiwan. I don't find that argument particularly attractive, because I don't think the Russians and the Chinese are sitting around waiting to decide if we open the door to their bad behavior. So I just put that out there for you guys to say, because Michael, you're not the only one person who I respect who's raised that point, assuming I understood you correctly. But Tim first, and then Michael.
I agree with that. I think if Putin thought he could do that, he'd have done it by now. I think he would have loved to pull off an operation like that. And it's more likely that this is actually a pretty scary moment for Putin. That capacity is an impressive capacity. And it was done so well. So I don't think he would have done that. I do think maybe with the Chinese, I think they play the long game, and I think that they've been waiting on Taiwan for a while, and I could see a scenario where they may use it to justify action on Taiwan. But that's all the more reason for the United States to be tight with Taiwan, and to project strength in that sphere. And to Michael's point, I think that is a good point. I mean, I don't see the obsession with this particular hemisphere. I mean, Europe's like a 6.5 hour plane ride away. Okay, I mean, we live in a global community at this point, and what is happening in Europe impacts us just as much as what happens in Venezuela, and what happens in Taiwan will impact us as well. So I don't understand that obsession. But I just don't see Putin, thinking, oh, this is now my green light to go do this. I think Putin is bogged down at this point.
Yeah. And Michael, I'm going to let you speak, and I don't want to mischaracterize you, so you'll take the floor and say what you meant. There must be, I'm no geographical genius, there must be points in Latin America that are much further away than we are from Europe, right? There's more than 6 hour flight to the southernmost part of Latin America, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, at least from New York, which is all I care about. Michael, thoughts on what I asked you about?
Yeah, it's not so much for me. I mean, look, I think Putin lost an ally in that hemisphere, but gained in the propaganda war, right? He's able to say, call us neo-imperialists, and we're no better than anybody else, kind of thing. How able to do that now. With China, look, given what we know about the president's position on Taiwan, and how much manufacturing we are doing with our own chip industry here in the United States, seems to me that he doesn't really care about Taiwan. It doesn't really matter what the Chinese does there, but the Chinese isn't going to just sit by and allow their own investment in the military, the Venezuelan military and Venezuelan economy just be taken over by the United States. I mean, it seems like they did prepare for a Chinese reaction in a military reaction in a way, because we now have basically an entire air base in Latin America. So to kind of discourage any Chinese ships from coming in. But like, I don't think that's the end of it. So I would have hoped that there is a preparation and a plan in place for the larger macro geo consequences.
Yeah, I'll say again, there's no rush. One of the things that I think you always have to think about the alternative. There's times when the U.S. engages in a military action where the clock starts to tick, and the U.S. must do something. Like in Iraq, where you take out Saddam Hussein, you can't have the blood on your hands of civil war, civil conflict. So the U.S. had to go in to restore order. That's not happening, at least not on a wide scale.
Well, no, and that society also, it's hard to compare it to Iraq, because that society had never been used to a democracy before. Venezuela was prosperous up till 25 years ago. It was thriving. It was under democratic rule. So it's very different. I mean, look, the United States occupied Panama, occupied Grenada. We played a huge role in the peacekeeping after Kosovo. And those are sort of the models for ownership after you do something like this, because we owned it. We stayed until we could restore rule of law and restore functioning government. The one case that didn't work out was Libya. And we left and we didn't own it. And that kind of regime change doesn't work. But the other three are good examples.
Okay. So lots of hand-wringing over Venezuela and over what the president and others, Stephen Miller and others, have said about other countries. Let me just show you three quick headlines. Here's the Washington Post, New York Times rather, number one. Venezuela projects unity as Trump's threats cause jitters around the world. Venezuela's attorney general urged steadfastness against U.S., quote, state terrorism. Some European leaders push back on President Trump's might makes right vision. So the Europeans are very upset about Venezuela. Here's more upset about Cuba, number two, Washington Post headline. Trump team puts Cuba next on target. Trump team puts a target on Cuba with threats and oil blockade. President Trump and Marco Rubio have made clear that the collapse of Cuba's communist government is not only a likely side benefit of Maduro's effort, but a goal. So there's concern in some quarters about that. And then here, number three, the Wall Street Journal headline explicitly about alarm. Alarm spreads amongst U.S. allies over Trump's demand for Greenland. European leaders reluctant to criticize Trump over Venezuela. Not true. Fear irreparable damage to NATO if he seizes the Danish territory. Now, as you might expect, the president was in a buoyant mood, and Joe Scarborough this morning, after a 20-minute phone call with the president, said the president spent most of the 20 minutes just being buoyant and excited about the success of the military operation. You saw that on Saturday. Here's the president at the Trump Kennedy Center today talking about Maduro and the operation, number four.
It'd be good. I would say that if they did a good job, their philosophies are so different, but if they did a good job, I'd be happy for the country. They've been after this guy for years and years and years. And, he's a violent guy. He gets up there and he tries to imitate my dance a little bit. But he's a violent guy. And he's killed millions of people. He's tortured. They have a torture chamber in the middle of Caracas that they're closing up. But he's tortured people, and now what they do, the radical left, they actually have people, and it's hard to get them. They're all paid people. Most of these people are paid. You know they're paid when they have brand new, beautiful printed signs by like the highest quality printer, and you have a woman, free Maduro, and the sign is before we even did the attack. Free Maduro. Why do you want him freed? I don't know, but he should be free. Oh, she reads the sign. What does it say? It says free. Well, that's what I believe.
All right. Here's the vice president on with, I'll call him a journalist, Scott Jennings, talking about the new leaders of Venezuela. The number six, please.
we want what's best for the Venezuelan people, but more importantly than that, by a factor of 100, we want what's best for the American people. And whoever the leader of that country is going to have to play ball with the United States. That is the whole problem that we've had in that region of the world. People don't realize that they've invited a whole host of American competitors into Venezuela. They've given them access to cheap energy resources, and they've used their own energy money to fund this terrible narco-terrorism against the United States of America. What the president did, and really the entire team made possible, is to cut off that flow of energy money to narco-terrorists, to then, of course, cut off the amount of narco-terrorism that's being imported into the United States of America. I think it's going to save lives. It's going to mean cheaper gas and energy prices for Americans. And maybe most importantly, it's going to mean that we have more control over the energy resources that exist in the world, which makes it possible for us, of course, to achieve better economic results for our people and to use those energy resources as leverage to achieve greater peace and prosperity. So I think it was a very important operation. It was carried out flawlessly, Scott. I mean, I remember being briefed on this a few weeks ago with just the details of what they were going to do. And I think all of us were kind of skeptical, like, can you actually do this? Go into a foreign country, take zero dead Americans, and actually, take this indicted narco-terrorist, Nicolas Maduro. The guys said they could do it. They turned out to be right. It was a real testament to their skill and bravery, but I think it will create great benefits for the American people.
Tim, let me try to ask you a complicated question about the vice president in a simple way. As a candidate for the Senate, as a senator, he was America first, no foreign wars, no entanglements. As the vice president to a president who believes in whatever this is, he obviously can't break with the president. Is his full-throated support for this mission, whatever it is, as amorphous it is, do you think represents a revealing of Vance's more nuanced view of America's role in the world that's not just isolationism, or is he simply speaking as he needs to as the vice president?
I think he's trying to be a team player. I don't think the vice president likes this stuff. I don't think that's
what makes you think that, Tim. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just curious what you're drawing on to say that.
I mean, everything he's talked about for the 3 years running up to this about, foreign wars and exploratory efforts and focusing on the homeland, et cetera, going after neocons at every single opportunity that he has. He's been very, very clear that within the context of the debate in the conservative movement, that he thinks people who are for what he perceives as foreign adventurism are on the wrong side of history.
Right. Okay. So
I think that makes it very hard for him.
Let me just
he's got to be a team player.
Let me play devil's advocate, because this is not just about Vance 28 and not just about Vance now. It's about the larger discussion in your party and in the country. There's at least four things that come to mind that Vance is for, that this furthers. He's for closing down the border. And Maduro was sending people here. He's for stopping the supply side on drugs. This helps with that. He's for restoring American manufacturing, and there's rare earth minerals and other things in Venezuela that the U.S. may get access to, and it would help us with being reliant on China. And four, he's for energy independence. So isn't it possible that if the military role is limited enough in blood and treasure that could be compatible with Vance's macro worldview?
Yeah, sure, it's possible. But I've watched him really closely the last 3 years. Like, he does not care about the 3 or 4 things that you just talked about as much as he cares about stopping foreign adventurers.
Interesting.
Right? I mean, that has been where he's the emphasis in his messaging has been for the last 3 years.
Yeah, Michael, I'd love you to weigh in on this exact point.
Yeah, to me, what it does is sort of exposes a shift in the power dynamic, because this couldn't be more of a personal, emotional, and like lifelong committed passion of Marco Rubio's. And the fact that he is able to, I don't want to use the word hijack because that sounds pejorative, but the fact that he is getting what he has dreamed of his entire public career, and probably like I said, a very personal issue for him. He's not an objective actor here. He came in with a
You're talking about Secretary Rubio now, right?
Secretary Rubio, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so the fact that Secretary Rubio is able to dominate the president's policy agenda in such a way is fascinating to me because, I don't know if Trump really had much interest in doing all this kind of stuff, but he was certainly convinced. And
Yeah.
I think that speaks more to the power and the influence of the secretary than it does say anything about the vice president.
Yeah, I'll take the opportunity to plug my reported monologue on Next Up. You can listen to it now on YouTube podcast. I traced the last 10 years of Marco Rubio, from little Marco and then Marco Rubio mocking the president for having small hands to now being so influential in this administration. And it starts with his friendship that he developed in the first Trump term with Ivanka. You may or may not remember that, but in any event, I traced through that, and it's a remarkable story, and part of it is he built relationships with everybody.
Mhm.
Part of it is he's a great defender of the president. Part of it is his expertise in intelligence from time as a senator. But part of it is he was born for this. He understands Latin American dictators. He understands the language, the culture, the customs, the people. They also probably also helped by the fact that the Venezuelans put a hit out on him. But this is his moment, and his desire to remake the hemisphere in the spirit of free market principles and democracy is kind of an incredible thing. How much leeway he has. But I'll say again, it's a personal story. And Tim, I don't discredit at all or take issue at all with what you said about the vice president. He and Rubio are great friends. And they share they're young dads, and they share a lot of personal stuff. But it's just so interesting because if this were the Reagan administration and this were happening, everybody in the White House would basically have the same philosophy. They would share the philosophy of all the congressional leaders of the Advancing American Freedom organization. It would all be the same. And here you have Tim, a very keen observer, a close observer of the vice president, saying this is not really what the vice president thinks. And Michael saying, well, this is what Rubio thinks. And those guys, they couldn't be closer personally. And they're working hand in glove on all this policy. So somehow it's all coming out in the wash in a pretty consistent way. And even this question of who's in charge, this is a Mutt and Jeff routine. Trump doesn't want to back off and saying anybody's in charge but him. But Secretary Rubio is describing it correctly. The Venezuelans are in charge as long as they do what we say. Yeah. That's basically how it's going. All right, we could talk about Venezuela for the whole hour, but we won't, because I want to talk about another topic and then a quick word from a sponsor. And again, if you want to be in on the conversation, please raise your hand. January 6th, lots of conversation today from the Democrats. The White House put out a narrative on the White House website, blaming Nancy Pelosi and mocking the Select Committee. So there's been some back and forth there. Here is number 9, please. This is the White House troll. That's an image from the website. You see Speaker Pelosi there. And here's the president at the Trump Kennedy Center today talking about January 6th. Number 10, please.
I'd much rather do live television than do non-live, because when they say, as an example in my speech, peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol, peacefully and patriotically. Do you know that the Unselect Committee didn't report it, that I said those words? Do you know that the news never reported the words walk or march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol? Do you know they never reported it? It's a scandal. The Unselect Committee never reported that. They never reported that Nancy Pelosi was offered 10,000 soldiers, National Guard soldiers, whatever you want. No, I don't want them. And the mayor. The mayors were in writing. She was more honorable about it. But Nancy got caught when her daughter did a documentary. She's a documentariist. And she has her mother saying, it's my fault. I should have taken the soldiers or something. I saw that in the documentary. I said, whoa, this was a major story. Has she spoken to her daughter since that, But they just, they are vicious people.
All right. I got to go back to Venezuela for a moment. Reuters, which has been doing really good reporting on the whole Venezuela story, reports that the major oil CEOs are coming to the White House on Friday for meetings, and there's been a little bit of reporting of how much consultation there's been. But the oil executives, not just on Venezuela, but they've been in and out of this White House more than any other White House in the history of White Houses. And so another meeting, the timing matters. Then there's, according to Reuters also, there's talks now between Washington and Caracas about exporting Venezuelan oil to the United States, which used to happen and has obviously not been happening. So that's a big deal. And then, am I right that Michael Reagan just passed away, or at least that was just announced? Not sure that's true, but
Stand by.
will tell me.
Stand by.
Somebody will tell me if that's true. In any event, on January 6th, Tim, obviously Vice President Pence seems to have, despite the fact that his life was threatened, seems to have gotten over this in more of a way and moved on more than President Trump has. But your thoughts on where this sits now in the country? Forget the parties, forget the president. Where does January 6th, do you think, sit with the nation at this point?
Well, I think it's still largely viewed as a terrible day and a stain on our national character. But I also think that there's a desire amongst American people to stop talking about it in some ways. And for whatever reason, the Trump and his base want to keep talking about it. What I thought was most interesting, Mark, about the clip you played from President Trump and the screenshot that you put up that was kind of mocking the Democrats is like, it's notable to me that they are going after the committee. They're not necessarily talking about the merits of the case. They're talking about the members of the J6 committee. And I think that's a safer place for them to be politically than to go back and try to relitigate whether or not he won the election. The members of the committee did not cover themselves in glory. And he gets, it's a softer spot for him to push, even amongst Republicans who might be really tired of him continually bringing it up. It's still a soft spot to push on because the members of that committee just don't have a lot of support with conservatives.
Amazing. Very well said, Michael. Tim, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is very sensitive about January 6th. I think he knows it has left a bad smell on his biography, on his legacy. It's a stain, not only on the country's history, but on his. And it seems to get under his skin. And I think that's why they are extremely, in terms of their tactics, this White House, and planning ahead. And like, look, he was confronting it head on. He knew it was going to be an anniversary, and they confronted it and they started trolling, and they're very good at that. I commend them on their sort of grabbing the attention from the news of the day and not running away from it. Actually, I've heard from reporters that there is a picture of my tweet blown up in the West Wing because I said they do things that Democratic digital strategists could only dream of having, the latitude that they do to push the envelope in the way they do. So they're very good at that. But for me, January 6th, look, I lived through it. It really didn't affect our transition or our presidency all that much. By that point, it was more of a rallying cry for, I think, a lot of never Trumpers who would have loved to have seen the entire 24 election be based on January 6th. They just never stopped talking about it. And it just reflected such a disconnect with what was happening back home in places where I'm from, like the Lehigh Valley, who just don't care.
Yeah. Well said also. I want to get to your questions in just a minute, so please keep your hands up, raise them if you want to ask. Just a few more topics to cover. Governor Walz of Minnesota did take questions today. Didn't really advance the story much from what we knew about his stated reason for not seeking re-election. Here he is fighting off any notion that he might resign. Number 14, please.
Their idea of improving this state is being a parrot for Donald Trump, agreeing to everything that he agreed with. Well, here's what I'm going to tell you. It ain't happening. I'm not going anywhere. And you can make all your requests for me to resign over my dead body. Will that happen? I will fight this thing till the very end to make this state better. And the question that I think they need to decide is when did the guy in the White House resign? When does he take accountability for what he did? Because it isn't going to happen here in terms of us shying away from making this.
Michael, if this is the end of his career in elective office, what will his political obituary, not his literal obituary, how will he be remembered in national politics?
I think this is going to be a big part of it. I mean, this is a massive historic tranche of fraud that somehow is only really getting the attention of the national media over the last couple months. But it prosecutions and court proceedings have been going on apparently for a while, and it's stunning to me that the Harris vet team missed what was going on in state government in Minnesota.
Yeah.
And that's remarkable. But what's been disappointing to me about Governor Walz, because I don't mind the guy, I didn't mind him much, except when he became the vice president nominee after campaigning for the job so eloquently and so effectively as a communicator, he stopped communicating. But what bothers me about his reaction to this is his lack of contrition and ownership and sort of humility. That there was a system-wide breakdown in Minnesota, and it might not have been all from Minnesota state agencies. I mean, I think some of this is rooted in USDA in 2020 laxing oversight because of COVID, and a lot of that child care money and food assistance was coming from USDA in 2020, and people seem to always forget who was president then, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot that we still don't know, but I'm disappointed in how he's blamed the president for something that is clearly a really poorly mismanaged state welfare system.
Yeah. Again, well said. I'm going to get to your questions now because I want to make sure we do. Michael Reagan has passed away. And I met him once, and I'll say it's very difficult to be the child of a president and very difficult to be the child of someone in public life for decades, as he was. And Michael Reagan built quite a career for himself as a commentator and a broadcaster like his dad. And he will be missed. Either of you ever meet him or know him at all?
I knew Ron. I know Ron.
Yeah.
Reagan from the hardball days, but from what I remember about Michael Reagan, I mean, I remember seeing him more when Rush was very big in the 90s. And I don't know actually how he feels about the Trump administration, but it couldn't be more polar opposite of his father's.
Yeah. Tim, did you know him?
I did not know him. I certainly followed him and appreciated his commentary. There are a lot of scions of the conservative movement at that age that are passing now.
Yeah.
We've lost a lot of them over the last 10, 12 months.
Yep.
I've known a lot of them. And I do think it speaks to a real changing of the guard on the right and a time of tumult on the right and a contest on the right for what's to come next.
Yeah. And there are many who are ailing. So there unfortunately will be more. All right. Quick word from a sponsor and then to your questions. Again, put your hand up if you want to be part of the conversation. Many New Year's resolutions do include or should include a need to get better sleep, better rest, more rest. Imagine how much more energy you'd have if you're able to sleep better, be more relaxed in the evening. A product that's worked for over 2 million people is CB Distillery. Their products, all natural. Go to cbdistillery.com. 25% off everything on the website, cbdistillery.com. It's a smart way to start the year to get better sleep. 90% of the customers of CB Distillery say in a survey that they sleep better, which is tough to beat for something you can purchase at a big discount. Options for more sleep, better moods, less stress, reduce pain after workout. CB Distillery, premium product, quality, third-party tested, free of artificial dyes and fillers. As I said, over 2 million happy customers. If you're ready to start off the year trying something for better relaxation, go to cbdistillery.com. Use the promo code 2way, cbdistillery.com, promo code 2way for 25% off the entire site. Thank you for your attention to that matter. All right, there may be some more news. I've got to check my inbox because I might have a little bit of news. But while we wait for that, let's bring in Rob. Rob, thanks for being here. Unmute, tell everybody who doesn't know where you are and what's on your mind for Tim and for Michael, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. Atlanta, Georgia, thanks for calling on me. Happy New Year, everyone. Two quick related questions about Venezuela that I'm struggling with. The first one is there seems to be a lot of hand-wringing about China and Russia somehow having permission now to do things that they weren't able to do before or weren't willing to do before. But I really wonder if that's true. I mean, they don't have the capacity to do these kinds of things, it seems like. So my question to you guys is that the case, or are they really going to be given some now permission, some moral high ground to do things that they weren't able to do before? That seems unlikely to me. And related to that is, why does everyone assume that the new Trump version of the Monroe Doctrine is the Monroe Doctrine? It seems to me like it's going to be a hybrid doctrine. It's going to be focused on the Western Hemisphere, but at the same time, that doesn't preclude us from continuing to help weaponize Australia with nuclear submarines and continue to support Japan in their robust efforts to build up their military, and to support Europe through arms sales to deal with the Russian threat in Ukraine. So those are two related questions. Why all this hand-wringing? Can China and Russia really do these things? And can they really even respond effectively to what we've done in Venezuela? And is this really the Monroe Doctrine, or is it some new hybrid doctrine? So those are my questions. I'd love to hear your opinions on that.
All right. The first question you might have missed earlier in the show. We addressed it pretty directly. The question of Russia and China. So you can go back and watch it on YouTube. I won't have others hear it. But it's a great. You're saying. I love your second question about Monroe Doctrine, or as the New York Post dubbed it, the Donroe Doctrine. Tim, thoughts on Rob's question there?
Yeah, it's a great point. And I think we alluded to it earlier. Michael actually made the point about what's the obsession with just this particular hemisphere, not the rest of the world. So I do think it's going to be a hybrid. I think there are elements of the Republican base and elements of the Trump coalition that really want us to forsake all other hemispheres and all other parts of the world. And the key flashpoint there is Ukraine, but that's also going to migrate to China if China does invade Taiwan. They will be restrainers or isolationists when that happens as well. But I don't think Trump himself is a restrainer or an isolationist. I actually think Trump's instincts are peace through strength, and when he's at his best. And I think this thing in Ukraine is going to go up and down 5 more times before we figure out what actually happens. So today we're sitting here waiting to figure out what the Europeans figure out, and if there's actually a deal that's hammered out, or if there is not. But if there is not, you could easily see Trump saying, all right, well, what's the next piece of leverage we have? Maybe it's time for Congress to actually pass a sanctions bill. Passing a sanctions bill would be a really strong move by Congress. It would actually give the president more leverage. It would actually allow him to go back to the table and say, look how crazy this Lindsey Graham is. This guy's nuts. If you don't like this, you better get to the table and deal with me, Vladimir. And the same kind of dynamic could happen with China as well. But the whole new Donroe Doctrine thing, I feel, is something that's cooked up by more of the restrainers and isolationists within the Tucker wing of the president's coalition. I think that's unique to them. I don't think that's where Marco Rubio is. I don't think that's where President Trump is. I don't think that's where the vast swath of conservatives are across the country. So we'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
Michael.
I agree with everything Tim said. I don't have much else to add, except I'm waiting to see. I would love more clarity and communication about what their strategic aim is, whether it's outside, whether it's Greenland or whatever, Cuba. I would like to know what they're planning to do. That's all. And so, but I don't have anything else to add. I thought Tim said it best.
I think that this is a 2-step leverage game that involves economics and military and diplomatic and sphere of influence. One is to use the leverage we have in this hemisphere now for a variety of reasons, and over Venezuela through the Navy, get leverage to control the oil, the rare earths, and in this hemisphere, and to get Iran and China and Russia out of the hemisphere, and then to take that strength to go to Russia and China and say, we control our hemisphere now. You can control a lot of your hemisphere, not all of it, but you can control a lot of it. And he wants to end this term with this hemisphere lockdown, rare earth minerals and oil in abundance, free trade in this hemisphere where it benefits the United States, and then say to Europe and Asia, you guys can sort it out for the most part as long as you don't threaten American interests. So it's gaining leverage, using leverage to gain leverage, basically using leverage to gain leverage in this hemisphere, then using the hemispheric leverage to go to the rest of the world. That's
But
my
the
view.
problem, Mark, the problem is, God forbid, there's not another 9/11, right? We're the only country that has ever had to trigger the Article 5 in NATO. So we will need the other hemispheres at some point. We will need our European allies down the road. Like we can't just isolate ourselves by hemisphere.
Yeah.
We need the Europeans.
Yeah.
We've needed them almost everything we've done in U.S. foreign policy. We've done mostly jointly.
Yeah. Well said also. Rob, thank you for that. All right, I go back to your questions in a minute, but I want to show you a couple things. First, this is some video of Proud Boys holding a protest outside the Willard Hotel today. This is from TMZ, and some anti-Proud Boy protesters showed up talking about insurrection. The Proud Boys were there in support of Ashley, who was killed in the Capitol, and they had a little bit of a confrontation. Hope, Tim, this doesn't give you PTSD, but here we go. All right, gentlemen, as upsetting as that was, I'm requesting permission to make a joke.
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. And watch, Michael, watch me crack Tim's poker face. More profanity than you would hear at a Heritage Foundation communications staff meeting. A lot of profanity there. Okay. Either of you want to comment on that? Because I got more news to share that's bigger than that. Either of you
Nope.
want to comment on that?
I would just
No.
say that's incredibly discouraging. Our politics are really broken.
Yeah.
I don't even know what to make of which side was which there. I don't love, as a Christian, I don't love people throwing around Christ's name in that way.
Amen to that.
And,
Oh, well, Mark,
that's really,
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
despicable all
Yeah.
the way around.
You did
Yeah.
answer a question for me though, because
Yeah.
I'm a block away from the Willard and I heard those sirens earlier.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what it was. They were
Yeah.
unusually loud. But that makes sense now. That's helpful. Thank you.
There you go. You're welcome. Okay. So in the last couple days, really since Saturday, there's been a lot of speculation about Greenland. And the White House has egged it on, and the Millers have egged it on. Reuters and the BBC both asking the White House about this. And this is kind of extraordinary because it takes something that's been a little bit elliptical and makes it pretty close to explicit. This is reading from the Reuters now. The White House said in a statement in response to queries from Reuters that Trump sees acquiring Greenland as a U.S. national security priority necessary to, quote, deter our adversaries in the Arctic region. Quote, the president and his team are discussing a range of options to pursue this important foreign policy goal, and of course, utilizing the U.S. military is always an option at the commander-in-chief's disposal. I may be wrong, but I think that's the first time that they've said something that explicit. And here's the BBC headline: U.S. discussing options to acquire Greenland, including use of military, says White House. So, do you guys, am I right? It's the first time they've said explicitly that the use of the military is an option. Of course, it comes just as the Europeans and not just the Danish, but others put out robust statements saying this is a matter for the Danish and for the Greenlanders. So that's kind of incredible. I had another story, but I've lost sight of it. So let's go to Chris. Chris, welcome in. Happy New Year to you. Thank you for coming back this year. Chris lives in Atlanta, Georgia, for those of you who don't know. And Chris, the floor is yours for Tim and for Michael. Oh, can't hear you. Try to unmute again if you could. Chris went to an Ivy League school, so unmuting does not come natural to him. There you go.
That's a good joke.
Go ahead, Chris. Yes, sir.
So, given that I found both of your responses to questions about January 6th fairly dismissive, I'd just like a brief answer to this question. What, in your opinion, was the worst thing that President Trump did that day?
The single worst thing he did on that day?
Yeah.
All right. Michael?
Well, a couple. I mean, he was lying about winning an election he didn't win. That really wasn't all that close when it came to the popular vote. And egged on some really violent people. Without Trump, there wouldn't have been a January 6th. So his behavior led to what occurred at the Capitol, and I think it was too late by the time he made that video in then Rose Garden to be peaceful or whatever he said. But from what we know based on the discovery in the Dominion documents is that you had Fox News hosts actually texting and calling the chief of staff and his family, begging him to do something. And his response was really inadequate.
Yeah. Tim.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Chris. I don't mean to be dismissive. I think it's a very, very important issue. Look, I think the worst thing that he did was lie to his own followers. That's the worst thing he did. He had the trust of those people, and they trusted him so much that whatever came out of his mouth, they took to be true. And what he said was that Mike Pence has the constitutional authority to overturn the election. And for me, that's the problem. And when you say that, then you say the election was stolen and you say that there's this one guy that can magically fix it and has this constitutional authority that doesn't exist. When you do that, you create the scenario that then unfolded. That was the problem for me. And, like I said, it was a dark day, not something we as Americans should be proud of. It ended tragically with people losing their lives. And it's best that we move past it and stop focusing so much on it and especially ascribing glory to it. when it really was such a tragic day.
Yeah. Chris,
So,
you
Michael, let
did.
me
Yeah.
ask this.
Go ahead.
Do we move past subtle failure behavior? Why would we move past the behavior of the leader of the free world, who, in my opinion, neither one of you really said the worst thing he did. The worst thing was he watched the attack for hours and did nothing.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we
Yeah.
said that, but look,
Yeah.
we have to.
Yeah. It was raised, Chris, but I take your point in terms of not moving past it, just as we wouldn't move past any part of history. Moving past is a phrase. Michael.
But the reason why we have to move past it is because the American people, the voters, have rendered a judgment that they want to move on, and if we want to believe our own advice, that we respect institutions.
Chris, he won the election. You can dice and slice the returns all you want, but he did win the election.
If we respect institutions and we respect the voters and we respect the democratic process, like we say we did, we can't just like democracy when we win. We have to like it when we lose. And I think voters rendered their opinion that they want to move on.
Chris, thank you. Yes. Thank you, Chris. Grateful to you. Okay, I want to show you something else. A lot of stuff breaks in the afternoons. This is a new video from DHS, Department of Homeland Security, about their apparent enthusiasm for their new operation in Minnesota, where people are saying they're going to make Minnesota the new Minneapolis, the new Chicago. Here is that video. Okay, a little weird. Speaking of weird, because we just have a minute left, and I was told this is like a must play. Well, first of all, play number 20. All right, that's the prelude to this. This is the president. It goes on for more than a minute. This is the president telling meandering jokes to the House Republicans today. Close on a lighter note. Number 17, please.
And she gets up and they put a little tiny thing like this, little tiny. And my wife, by the way, my wife hates when I do this. She said, she's a very classy person, right? She said, it's so unpresidential. I said, but I did become president. She hates when I dance. I said, everybody wants me to dance. Darling, it's not presidential. She actually said, could you imagine FDR dancing? She said that to me. And I said, there's a long history that perhaps she doesn't know. Because he was an elegant fellow, even as a Democrat, right? He was the attack by Japan, he was quite elegant, but he wouldn't be doing this. But
all right, cut out of this, unfortunately.
But she says, darling, please.
One more bit of news. The Wall Street Journal on this question of U.S. military action in Greenland. The Wall Street Journal reports that Secretary Rubio has told his former colleagues on the Hill, this is not about imminent military invasion. It's about putting on leverage and pressure to buy Greenland from the Danish. I don't know what the price point would be, but the president likes to negotiate down. And obviously, if there's some threat, perhaps the president thinks we can get, as we call it here in New York, a bag or maybe that's what we call it in Boston. Tonight, 7 o'clock Eastern time, Daniel DiMartino of the Manhattan Institute, and a great expert on Venezuela, will join Michael. Not this Michael.
Moynihan.
Thank you, Michael Moynihan, my colleague on the Moynihan Report. 7 o'clock Eastern time on Two-Way, and tomorrow morning meeting 9 a.m. Eastern time, and then the next episode, the new episode of Next Up, my reported monologue on Marco Rubio, how Donald Trump exercising leverage in the hemisphere, and conversation about who the Democratic stars will be in 2026 with our political panel, and Jessica Reed Kress, my friend Jessica Reed Kress. We talk about her oeuvre. Do you guys know Jessica Reed Kress? You know who that is? Yeah, she's all right. So this is a big gender thing. She's one of the most popular writers on Substack. She's an incredibly talented writer and video maker and photographer. Her audience is overwhelmingly women. And so I find when I ask men if they know Jessica, they don't. And when I ask women, they're like, yes, I love her. And her following is passionate. Her audience is almost as big as that of 13th and Park. That's how big it is. Anyway, that's available now. Next up, and again, I'll be back 9 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow with the morning meeting. Tim, couldn't be happier and more delighted to have you back. Michael, thank you for returning. Hope to have you both back soon. Thank you all for being part of the community. And for those of you who asked questions, Chris and others, thank you for that. And we'll see you back here in 23 hours. Have a great evening, everybody.